Welcome to Techmark Pod, where we innovate, discuss, and discover the dynamic intersection of technology and marketing. In each episode, we explore how businesses can leverage both to drive growth and innovation. Meet Alvin, our esteemed host for Techmark Pod. With over 15 years of experience as a renowned marketer, project manager, and software as a service architect, join us as we uncover the unique value proposition of integrating technology and marketing strategies, helping you stay ahead in this fast-paced digital world.
Hi everyone, welcome to Techmark Pod, and today we've got a virtual episode with Mbali. Mbali stays in the other city, which is Cape Town, which is in Cape Town. So unfortunately, we couldn't meet in person, but I'm excited that we at least managed to have this virtual interview. And I mean, we're going to talk marketing. I've known Mbali as a speaker, author, lecturer. I loved I think you had one of the last year at IMC. You spoke about you being a lecturer and you could relate that to marketing. It was just amazing how you explained it, and yeah. So Mbali, welcome to Techmark Pod.
Thank you, Alvin. Thank you for having me. And as you said, the conversation is about marketing, so I'm really looking forward to engaging with you.
Definitely. I want you to introduce yourself. That's like our tradition. I don't want to shortchange you, because if I introduce you, I might, leave out some important aspects.
Thank you. Where do I start? I think we had a brief discussion, you and I, before, we actually conversated. But in a nutshell, to take you a bit back, I grew up in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal. I'm a typical Durban girl. I'll always say I earned my stripes in KZN because that's where I was introduced to entrepreneurship. That's where I started finding my feet. But Durban became my little playground. So a lot of what I've achieved up to date is because of where I come from. And to give you just a brief, history, I started in I'm not going to go right back where I was a banker. That's like way back. I'm just going to fast forward to about 2017 when I really got into the avenue of entrepreneurship. I have a company called Mind Switch, which a lot of people probably know. And Mind Switch it started off as an activations company, so brand activations. And what happened was one day I got invited to University of KwaZulu-Natal to speak to the students about entrepreneurship. And I started then getting a lot of gigs doing that, doing a lot of workshops with universities, business incubators. And then MindSwitch changed from a activations company to a people development or business development agency. So offering mentoring and workshops to small businesses. So I did that for the longest time. And in about 2016, 2017, I actually started way before 2017 with my business. But then in about 2018, I then became head of marketing for a company called Acacia Medical in KZN. And it was a beautiful time in corporate, equally challenging, but very rewarding. And in about 2020, there was a lockdown, but at that point, the business was going through some form of business turnaround. So there were a few changes, and of course, me being me, I thought, these changes are good, but they're not going to suit me. So at that point, I made the decision to then move out of corporate and go back into entrepreneurship. So I did have a pause moment when it came to entrepreneurship, and 2020 lockdown came through, and I then started crafting and writing my book. So yeah, I'm a businesswoman meets author. So the author journey started in 2020. I have a book called.
Do you think maybe the pandemic created an environment for you to become an author?
Absolutely. Remember, we were all stuck in our homes.
Yeah.
We couldn't easily go out anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly, it just became a time. It was such a fertile time for me. I can't describe it, but I felt it was a nice opportunity for me. And I say the word opportunity carefully because it was also a bad time. And if you can remember the amount of deaths happening on week. But it became an opportunity for me to just calm down and also see what can I do to entertain people,
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Mind Switch came back. I got into digital and PR branding virtually for some clients. We had doctors on board. We had entrepreneurs. I hired a young lady who worked with me. We did everything online because we couldn't go out into the streets and markets. And then the book came through.
Yeah.
And that was that moment that gave me the time. But mind you, I launched the book in September 2020. I had started crafting the book already in December the previous year. So
Okay.
that was enough time. Yeah. So we launched. I launched it. It's called Selfish, Mastering Self in a Selfish Business World. And it
Mm-hmm.
basically documents the business lessons that no one talks about. Very controversial, some of them. Um,
Okay.
and, it was well received. So I had universities, bulk buying. I had entrepreneurs. I had corporate institutions, telling me to come in and do a workshop for some of the employees who are looking to be entrepreneurs. So that became quite, exciting. So that was then the author journey, part one. And then, of course, the lockdown eased. But during that time, I also had a cleaning company. So
Okay.
at that time, 2020, there was an opportunity for us with a friend to open up a cleaning company. And I did. And in about 2021, we then got our first tender.
I
And
was about to say, is this cleaning company a tender company? But anyway, now you said it, so I won't. Yeah.
look, there were many opportunities, as I say.
Yes,
So you got to move with the times,
I
and
get you.
luckily, you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
we went in full swing. But I mean, by the time we got that tender, we had done so many gigs in the highway area because it was COVID. So the
Mm.
strategy was, if I come and fog your business, I must take a photo with you, and you must give me a reference letter. And that was the strategy. Every business was
It
giving us
is.
letters, and by the time we applied, 100% Black female owned, and we had like 20 references. And then, of
Wow.
course, the department was like, full on, let's go. And we got
You
the
got it.
job,
You got it right. You got it right.
Yeah. So I mean, we did it, we winged it. Very, very interesting time of my life. I always say it also that also deserves a book on its own, dealing with
Mm.
government as a small business owner. But we had 15 employees. At some point, it got to 20
Wow.
employees full time,
Wow.
in the heart of Pietermaritzburg. And then what happened was we were just doing the business. We were doing it as we should. But with tenders, there's always a problem with funding. There's always a problem with late payments, and that became a trend and a pattern. From what I'm hearing, it still is. And
Mm.
I then took the decision in about, when was it? In December 20, actually, it was November 2021, that next year I'm not going to continue with, no, not November, sorry, I'm getting my dates wrong. November 2022. I then decided the following year, when they renew the contract, I'm going to say yes. Luckily, at that time, there was an institution that entered my emails, and they were looking for a lecturer for students,
Yeah.
but they were not clear that it was going to be an online position. So I tentatively agreed. I said, yes, I am actually looking to do something on the side. Let's see what we can do. And upon further then consultation and talks with the HR, they said actually it's on site and it's in Cape Town. And I thought, sure,
Oh.
I've been looking for this.
You're not.
I've
You're
been
not
looking for
thinking of moving. Yeah.
No, I hadn't even thought of moving, but I mean, I was getting tired. I was getting tired of the usual environment.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
luckily at that point, so I signed the contract with Red and Yellow, which is the institution that I'm with now,
Yeah.
in about December 2022. And then January 2023, I then relocated. And I decided there and then that I'm a lecturer. And
Wow.
I always said, as long as the golden line is business or marketing, I'm going to be okay because that's what I know. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the universe has been quite, very good in terms of aligning me with prospects and opportunities that always align to what I need to do for that season. So I currently am a lecturer, yes. And of course, I've tentatively also gone back to business. So that will always be with me. And I've got a beauty company that
Okay.
specializes in premium wigs. It's called Owana Aesthetics, and it's an online shop. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So I want to know something. You did you study marketing when you're in KZN?
I actually have a qualification only in masters in business administration. So I've got an MBA,
You have an
and
MBA, yeah?
the MBA had a marketing component. And then after that, because I was interested in the game of marketing, I did short courses at an institution. I did brand management, and then I also
Mm,
did strategic marketing, and then I did
mm,
return on marketing investment. So I've always done these specialized marketing courses, but I've made sure that I've done them, of course, at recognized
mm,
institutions. So in terms
mm,
of actually a degree, no, I
mm.
have a BA in media and communications, and then there is an MBA, and then there's a doctorate coming up. So
Oh, okay.
that's yeah,
Okay.
but
We can't
hopefully,
wait for Dr. Mbali. Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, it's time, eh? Time.
Yeah, it is time. I think your journey is quite exciting. And the mere fact that I don't think you need a degree to say you're a marketer. You
Sure.
understand?
Yes.
Almost it's a lived experience, and
Yeah.
also, whatever whatever you studied, if you did media and communications, you understand that media and communications on some of the marketing degrees, it's kind of like a module that we also learn and
Yeah.
understand, and
Yeah.
it's qualities of a marketer that
Sure.
makes you a marketer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I want to know, as a person who understands marketing, all right, um, how then did you apply your marketing knowledge within your businesses that you have been building, from mind switch to the hair business and all
Yes.
that stuff?
Yes. Very important question. So I always say marketing, you can learn the theory, but unfortunately, the application of it is when you have to be exposed to a specific client. That's when you start really starting to understand what marketing is. For me, marketing has been a journey. So I definitely didn't get it right. I actually didn't even know what I was doing half the time. So for mind switch, for mind switch, I think what worked for me more than anything was word of mouth and building that credibility. And that in itself is a form of marketing.
Yeah,
Yes, I
definitely.
was actively showcasing the business on social media, but I wasn't as prominent or as loud as some of the influencers are, in current day times. I was just posting here and then, but I think it was word of mouth, networking with individuals, but most importantly, making sure that the brand is seen. And the
Mm,
brand being seen didn't mean for it to be publicized to that extent where, oh, okay, now she's overdoing it. But it was just me consistently engaging in storytelling from an online perspective. So if I had an activation, I would take a photo and I'd say, we did this activation at the workshop. This was interesting. And then people would engage. And then
mm.
there was always this tagline, mind switch, and people found even the word, the name of the company interesting, mind switch. Um,
What does it mean? What does it mean, mind switch?
well, it was, if you look at that, that word, it's the switching of people's minds to
Mhm.
buy into me, to buy into my brand, to buy into what the basket of goods that we have for the consumer. So the entire thing was built really on, I think I knew at some point that marketing is the the constant pursuit of making sure that the marketer creates a credible impression in the minds of the consumer. And it is having that share of mind within your audience that is going to give you that longevity. I wanted to
Mm.
always make sure that I'm on people's minds. So
Yeah.
mind switch, don't even ask me
No,
how I went.
I love the brand name. It sounds very catchy. Mind Switch. It really
Yes,
sounds very catchy.
thank
Okay,
you.
but
Yeah.
are you still using Mind Switch at the moment, or you now move to the hair business only?
So my switch is still there in the background. It never stopped, but of course there were seasons where I had to pause it. Like when I started the lecturing journey, of course I couldn't, just stop the lecturing and then just quickly go and do a workshop.
Yeah,
And doing
yeah.
a workshop, sometimes you got to do it during business hours, and of course I'm still working. But what has happened is there have been few consultations that I've done on the side. So that business is still definitely there. If I'm even applying for something, I still use the profile of the business because the goodwill is there. The brand longevity is rests with that business. So it's a business that I actually cannot close down because every single thing that I've done,
It's
if I
yeah.
was if I was too lazy to start a new company, I'll just say mind switch trading as, and then
Yeah.
hoy, do what you got to do. I mean, that's how we got the some of the big contracts that we got when I was in KZN through MindSwitch. So yeah, definitely, it's still being used. But of course, Owana Aesthetics has its own identity, so that
Okay.
that was important for me. Yeah.
So from your experience as a marketer, right, and you become a lecturer, right? So something that I've experienced is students that are coming from university or college, and there's a big gap of what the students have learned and what we practice as marketing. You
Yeah.
know, are you realizing that gap? How are you possibly trying to close that gap, so that
Mm.
when students come into the industry, they are able to, to match up to what we expect.
Sure. Luckily for me, I'm at an institution where there is a module, and I think many institutions have this, where in the third year of the students, there is a module called workplace learning. And
Mhm.
that's where we actually prepare them for industry. So we actively expose them to industry. They have to go in and do an internship within the industry. And of course, they come back and, the assessment is actually them going actively into the workplace. So, luckily for me, there is that opportunity to understand the gaps. But how am I making sure that that is currently that the gap is first of all, we know what the gap is, but it's also preparing the student to what they could potentially be faced with. Collaborating with industry experts, bringing them into the classroom, getting students to understand that this is actually how the world is beyond the lecture room.
True.
For us, that's a big thing. For me, that's a big thing. Liaising with some of my friends that are in the industry, but most importantly, also having good conversations within the context of the lecture room. Marketing is no longer just about learning about the 4 Ps or the 8 Ps, but it's
Mm.
actively looking at our social media. It's actively looking at what's happening in the world, and then encouraging students to have an opinion and a voice about that. So we will bring in current affairs into the landscape of the lecture room, and then I'll say, right, let's talk about this. We did theory last week. Today, we're only going to talk about what's actually happening from a country branding perspective. Here's an issue that's been
True.
happening globally. Let's talk
Mm.
about it. And
Mm.
then what that does is that it might not prepare them per se, but at least they are becoming quite creative in articulating themselves, but also having a valid opinion about what's happening globally. So that's one of the ways. Another one of the ways, of course, is also bringing in relevant exercises, group sessions to them, and then of course saying to them, this is what's happening currently in the industry, these are the challenges, this is the links that you can go to, and you have to come up with the solution to basically help this respective company. So giving them actually real life briefs, which is what we actively do as lecturers. Yeah, so I think that's how we managed to give them a small wake-up call to say it's not going to be easy.
I think so. I think they need to be. I think you're teaching them to be woke, because if you look at it, if you're a marketer and you don't understand the impact of the president going to the White House, then there is a problem.
Exactly.
If you don't know what is the latest that's happening in the industry, it's a problem. So then it brings me to the discussion of AI. AI is disrupting what we're learning, what we're doing in the industry, everything basically, and is going fast at a very exponential rate. And if you look at it, yesterday, only last week, there was, Google released so many products. And now you can actually create a whole AI video and all the stuff. And then just yesterday, yesterday or 2 days ago, Apple had their WDC conference, and they released new products, new designs, and all the stuff. And if you have a marketer that is probably a laggard or a laid back and not understanding what's happening in the industry, then it's a problem. How are you keeping up with the changes in the industry and what you are teaching the students?
Yes. So, to go back to your question of AI, it's a very important one. And I shied away from it totally because, of course, as an academic, we can't flaunt it too much in the context of the lecture room, because we are going to have plagiarism involved. But what we have been discussing is, from a creative economy perspective, how can we use AI intelligently? How can we, as designers, as creative thought leaders, how can we use it to influence our decisions? So for me, AI, I use it in the context of helping them ask the right questions so that they can get the right insights and the right strategy for their respective brands or their respective projects. So AI for me is using it as a strategic tool, not as a copy and paste. So what I have done sometimes is I have said, okay, right, you are requested to do a project charter for an upcoming campaign. Actually go into AI and ask AI, prompt AI to give you some form of structure. And then what you will do is you'll come back to the lecture and you'll say, this is what AI presented and this is what I was able to adapt from AI. And this is my final version. So it is using AI as a point of reference and not necessarily as the only point of reference. Yeah. So wow. I think for me, that's the most important thing from an AI perspective. But I mean, I think to also answer, because I think you asked, I don't know if you asked this question again or, but yeah, it really is exposing them to industry giants. It's collaborating with industry. It's getting the master classes in, but it's also, you don't necessarily have to wait for that. You can just prompt them to say there is an article or there is a forum that is taking place on this respective day. As a marketer, you definitely should be there. Please go on. And then when we engage next time, we're going to talk about it. So I want to hear your thoughts. And you've got to encourage them to speak, because as a marketer, we yap,
Yeah. So on your speaking world, I would say the speaking world, you mentioned something that was quite interesting. I think it is the jargon that is used by the young ones, and I thought that was quite it speaks to the target market, which is the young ones. And I want you to at least maybe tell us more about how they perceive brands and how they speak, and how marketers should be able to interpret and possibly market to these young ones, because the language is different. The way we understand things and the way we possibly consume, certain messaging is different from how they operate.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're asking me this question, because actually my second book is on Gen Z marketing, by the way.
Interesting.
So Yes.
Congratulations on that. That's a very good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah,
Um, I think further localize it, with certain things that are more
absolutely,
local. I love it.
absolutely. So the book actually is research meets almost, I don't know how to describe it, but research meets insight. So it is that the book in itself, each chapter has been broken down into, of course, relevant themes, but the themes have a Gen Z slang or tone to them.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's a whole glossary that actually educates the reader on, if you're going to be marketing to this respective audience, also know their language. But I mean, that's a topic for another day. When I launch, I'll definitely come and
Yeah.
speak again to you. But
We definitely.
yeah, so let's go back to your question. How should marketers be communicating with Gen Z? So there are a variety of ways that we can do this. But I think the most important thing to understand is that Gen Z should not be misunderstood. In fact, they carry so much power in terms of their insights and in terms of knowing what brands should do. It's just that society has labeled them as problematic. They are highly strategic and they have a know-how of how to do things simpler than the rest of us. So you'll see that the older generations, we tend to take the long route, but
Yeah.
Gen Z is very good in terms of simplifying messaging and simplifying the way that they do things. So there are so many ways, but I think one of them that I can touch on is brand authenticity. um, Gone are the days where a consumer will actively buy a brand based on the functional benefits of that product or that service. They are now looking at the messaging behind the brand. They want to know what makes this brand wake up in the morning and do what they do. They want to know who the leaders are. They want to know, if you said there's a percentage of an ingredient, they're going to actively go look at the barcode or look at the packaging and start researching what's happening at the factory or at the warehouse where your goods are being manufactured. So all of a sudden, brands now need to start the entire journey of going back into the archives and telling their brand
Wow.
story, because all of a sudden Gen Z is that consumer. They are very eco-conscious. So when I say eco-conscious, they are a brand. They are a group of consumers that actively want to know, what am I eating, and where does it
Mm.
come, and who made it, and what's in it. And if it's against what I follow, I'm not even going to take a chance with it. So all of a sudden, it goes back to the messaging. The messaging that the marketer needs to have needs to be much more simple. You're speaking to a consumer group that thrives on simplicity, because for them, and there's a saying, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So for them, they
Mm.
want simple messaging, but they want brand storytelling. They want to be able to know what is your brand, because they're buying
Wow.
into your mission, your values. Um, they are big on experiential events. So they love personalization and customization. If you can have an event where you are giving them an opportunity to maybe have a bracelet with their name on it, or, there's some sort of personalization to it, they are active fans of that because they want to feel accepted. They
Mm.
want to be part of a community. So hashtag you can sit with us, that's the vibe that brands need to have. But
Yeah.
most importantly, what they're also doing is that they are also looking at brands, and they are also looking at what brands are doing wrong. And they want the brands to be accountable. So if
Mm.
you are a brand or a marketer that doesn't know accountability, don't know how to put your hand up and say, we made a mistake, we're sorry. They are taking notes. They are aware.
Wow.
They know what you didn't say, and they're linking it up. So it's also the attention to detail with this consumer. In fact, it is a consumer that is actually causing marketers to go through a huge wake-up call, because perhaps back in the day,
Yeah.
it was easy for us to just be a marketer and just, we've got a campaign, woohoo, it's on social media, and we got away with it. Unfortunately, this consumer is obsessed about the detail. So this then makes it very clear that the marketer that is coming into the space now needs to be a marketer who is absolutely also obsessed about the detail because there's a consumer who's watching. So there's a
Wow.
lot. There's a lot,
That's
yeah.
that's quite interesting. I think that description that you gave there it's about you understanding this market. Because trust me, when I heard you making that speech, I was
Yeah.
captivated, and I was just listening to everything that you were saying. I'm like, okay, you have studied this market, you teach them,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
understand them very well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to talk quickly about your upcoming book. Would
Yeah.
you want to talk about it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So I've finished writing the book. It was probably one of the quickest books ever. And the reason why I say it was quick is because the book actually had a focus group element to it. So I actually went out and I did 2 focus groups in Durban and in Cape Town. And there was a moderator on board for both sessions. And we asked them questions that marketers should be asking this generation of consumers. And boy, oh boy, the insights we got are going to shock you.
Wow.
There was no filter. So that's what I love about Gen Z, is that they
There's no
brought it all
filter.
out, you
Yeah.
know. So there's no filter. But the book has got 11 chapters, and the chapters are quite short. And each chapter, just to give you a bit of a context, it speaks about the theme that is going to be discussed. So let's just say we're going to discuss social media and mental health, which is a topic.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
give, and then I say what was discussed in the focus of the focus groups and what we focused on. And then what we focused on allows me to then share the insights between Joburg and Cape Town, and for marketers to understand the differences or the similarities in thinking regionally, which I think is also very important. The book at some point also focuses on how we must get rid of generational labeling, which is when we put a cap or an umbrella on a specific consumer and we say, oh no, they're millennials. They don't act like that. Or they are Gen Z. Of course they're going to act like that. So Gen Zs are actually different regionally, and there are cultural differences that marketers need to be aware of. So that's why we did the whole comparison between Joburg and Cape Town, 2 of the biggest metro cities.
Yeah.
And then the book ends off with self-reflection questions that marketers can share in their teams or in their creative groups. But every reflective exercise or question is based on the theme that was discussed. And so it's 11 chapters. Expect a bit of slang, colloquialism, just like my speech. But of course, I guide.
That's what we want. I think you're doing amazing, because I believe that Africans should tell their stories. This is localized marketing where we can't wait for an agent coming from Europe to understand the market. We need to tell our stories to the world.
Absolutely.
So you writing a book in marketing, that's a very big achievement, and
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy for you, and congratulations
Thank you.
for doing that. And when is it coming out? When is it
Oh,
ready?
nice. So we are looking at end of August because we've done quite a lot. So, but I think
Okay.
the intense work is going to be over July. Yeah. So it's in editing as we speak, and then what will happen is it's still going to go through typesetting. So the typesetting is where the actual design, the internal design of the book is done. And then that takes a bit of like time. So you're looking at 2.5 weeks. But because it's a nice short book, they're not going to, be doing a lot. So it's just really neatening it and having some fancy fonts here and there. But the design concept is literally done. So it really is just the internal frame of the book. I had to go back and do a lot of shifting around because I put all the insights there, and the editors were like, "Sure, you're gonna bore the reader." So I had to go back and change. One thing that I do want to say that I think is going to be a nice catch for the industry is I've also done a Gen Z consumer barometer,
Okay.
and what that means is that I have actually I took the Gen Z market and I segmented them. So I gave them names and why did I do that? Because Gen Z is different. So there's new money Gen Z, there's breadwinner Gen Z, there is a corporate. What I think it's corporate hun or corporate baddie. So I've used their terms to further segment them,
Yeah,
because marketers also need to understand that there's layers to this generation,
there
and
is
yeah,
layers.
there's layers. There's layers, and then there's also a trust fund Gen Z, which
Yeah,
I've put there as well. That needs to be a market that needs to be understood. There's first generation Gen Z who has very different experiences culturally as compared to the trust fund Gen Z. So I think the Gen Z consumer barometer is new. I haven't seen it yet in South
that's
Africa.
interesting.
I
That's
think when
interesting.
we
So where did you publish the barometer?
where did I haven't. It's actually it's in the book. So I
Oh, it's
think
inside the book. Oh,
it's
okay.
inside the book. It's chapter
Okay.
12. So it's like a bonus chapter. And I think
Yeah.
yeah, when we
Yeah.
are, when we've launched it, then I'll start really fleshing that out from
That's quite interesting. That's very interesting. I would love to buy that book. So
thank
please let me know when the book comes out. I think I do support local book writers when it comes to marketing and
yes,
tech.
thank
I'm not an avid book reader. I don't want to lie to you. I wish I can just get myself a robot that will be reading books while I'm sitting there. I think we're getting there. We're getting there now, So yeah, I think Mbali, it's been a pleasure talking to you. But do you
you.
have any parting words that you want to say? Yeah,
Wow, what parting words? I just want to say, thank you for this beautiful platform that you've created
thank
for
you.
us marketers. It goes a long way, because sometimes we also do feel like we misunderstood. So thank you for this. And I think if there is anything that I can say to marketers out there, is to consistently invest in yourself. As a marketer, you're like a chameleon. You have to blend in wherever you go. So
True.
it's not a one-dimensional career. It's a 360 dimension. And I think for me, it's proven to work well for me. Hop on the trends, but also don't just hop on the trend, analyze the trend, and see how that can help you in your respective industry. So yeah,
Well, thank you. Beautiful
thanks.
words for marketers. I appreciate that, and I hope to see you at IMC conference.
Yes, I am. I am this year. I'm actually an influencer. Can you believe this? I'm an influencer,
Yeah.
and we're going to get a brief in the beginning of the IMC, and I will be working with the CMO of VW,
Wow.
Richard Harper, as well as the CEO of Lucky Hustle, Mr. Morris, and we are going to be conceptualizing a brief which will be given to us by the CEO of the Nedbank IMC. We're going to present that brief. It's going to be a video, so I have to be the influencer and the model. And then there's going to be a panel. So I'm assuming I can't speak much about it because I haven't been briefed how
definitely.
the panel will work. But yeah,
either way, congratulations. You are on the stage and you are a speaker, you're a lecturer, you're doing the most for marketers. You know what I mean? So you're changing the game altogether. So yeah, thank you very much for coming through to Techmark Pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's cool, man. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we engage more. Mbali, have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.